Ghana has filed an arbitration suit under the UN Convention on the Law of the Sea in a bid to resolve its maritime border dispute with the Ivory Coast. The two countries have never officially delimited that boundary, and their maps showing offshore waters currently overlap. Any settlement to the long-running dispute could smooth the way for oil and gas exploration. Ghana is seeking a declaration that it has not encroached on Ivory Coast territorial waters in the exploration of oil.
Even in marriages, we get to the point where people have to file the petition for divorce. And so I'm sure this should be able to answer. However, to respect the relationship that we have, that is why we are opting for a non-adversarial kind of.
This is today's big story with me, Stephen Anti. Now, the Ivory Coast in 2010 petitioned the United Nations to complete the demarcation of the Ivorian maritime boundary with Ghana days after the American exploration firm Vanco discovered oil in the Jata-1 deepwater well. The issue attracted considerable media attention, and some local media claimed that the petition was an attempt by Ivory Coast to lay claim to Ghana's oil. But addressing journalists earlier today, Attorney General and Minister of Justice Marietta Appear Opong indicated the suit will not trigger any rivalry between the two countries.
I think what we should all recognize is that both Ghana and Cote d'Ivoire are parties to the UN Charter and to UNCLOS. UNCLOS is the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea. And both conventions recognize that, and we have undertaken that, we will use only peaceful methods to resolve our disputes. Arbitration is one of such peaceful methods. And so going for arbitration is not a hostile act. As I have stated, all we are seeking to do is to bring certainty to our oil companies, to the nation. That is all we are doing. No hostile act has been initiated. This is a peaceful method of resolving disputes. What we should recognize is that this is a line that has been recognized for decades, since the 1950s. We've all recognized this line. The challenge came in 2008. And so Ghana is not about to shift its position and say that line is no longer recognized. Indeed, the line is drawn according to internationally accepted principles of drawing maritime boundaries or delimiting maritime boundaries, which is the equidistance line. Our chairman of the commission is here. That's the Minister for Lands and Natural Resources. Since 2013, I can say with confidence that there have been at least 10 rounds of negotiation between Ghana and Cote d'Ivoire by our technical team. It hasn't yielded any results. And like I said, in order to bring about certainty, this is the only further step we could take, that is initiate arbitration under UNCLOS.
She will, however, not vouch for successive governments as far as carrying on with the arbitration suit is concerned.
Now, should there be a change in government, I'm not sure whether I can answer that question, because a new government will be in place and they will decide what they want to do. But you can see I'm here with my Solicitor General, their lawyers, the Chief Director is here, the other staff who are on the boundary commission, technical people. So the history will be there. The government of the day will decide what to do. So.
Now, the Energy Minister, Emmanuel Kofi Boah, says the arbitration suit will deepen investor confidence in Ghana's oil and gas sector.
Some of the discoveries that we have are affected by this. Cote d'Ivoire's claim indeed affect some of the discoveries that we have. And so I think, as has been stated by the Attorney General, this direction will bring certainty and really clear the way for investor confidence in our basis.
Well, now I'm joined in the studio now by Mr. Kwame Mfojo, who is with the Maritime Boundary Secretariat. It's great to have you here, sir.
Thank you.
How are you?
Fine.
Now, I'm concerned that the Attorney General in her address says that this comes despite several years of faithful negotiations, including at least 10 rounds of bilateral meetings between Ghana and Cote d'Ivoire. Why now?
Okay, let's start off by me correcting a few things.
Okay.
One, Ivory Coast has not asked the UN to delimit its boundary. Basically, the issue was raised by them in 2008 in the context of both countries putting forward to the United Nations proposals to extend their continental shelf, which is the area going out to sea. And basically, in that context, the whole issue of where the line between
now, in extending that continental shelf,
yes,
that goes into Ghana's boundary.
No, it doesn't.
Okay.
It goes into the outer, it goes way, way out to sea. But in that process, the question then came up, okay, we're doing some extra things to give us extra territory out to sea. Maybe we should start looking at where we are going to draw the dividing line between the two of us. Now, and again, I need to emphasize this because we need to do that by agreement, but provisionally, there's a line between us, the equidistance line, which we have used for almost 50 years. Now, the Ivorians have never...
That shouldn't have been in contest, right?
Not at all.
But
not at all.
Why is it so
Not
now?
at all. Not at all. And there's no sense in which areas overlap either. There's an equidistance line along which all our concessions are basically organized. Now, they've drawn a claim line since 2008, which is challenging a 50-year-old line. So we're talking about a 5 or 6 year old line which juts into our territory. So it is they who are making a claim on our territory. It is really important that be understood.
So what are we going to the UN for then? I mean,
we're going
because if they are making claim to our territory,
yes, they are laying
why
claim.
are we there for? I mean,
we're basically saying that the United Nations should confirm that the equidistance line that we currently have is where the line is supposed to be. There's a 3-step procedure in international law. 1, draw a provisional equidistance line. When you draw that provisional equidistance line, it's more or less where our line is already. Then 2, you basically look at what's called special circumstances, which might lead you to adjusting the line one way or the other. There are no special circumstances in our situation. 3, you do what's called a proportionality test. You look to see whether what ends up is disproportionate. So, for example, if the process of using the provisional equidistance line ends up giving them something which is 10 times less than ours, that's unfair. So the judges will adjust. But in fact, and we've done all the work, when you finish with the current provisional equidistance line, there's nothing to adjust and everything is reasonably proportional.
You just said you've done all the work. I mean,
Yes,
it means that
we
you're
have.
confident that you have a
We've been
solid
working on
case
this. We've been
as
working.
you
We've been
go to the
working
UN.
on this. We've been working on this quietly in the background, in parallel to the negotiation process for roughly 2.5 years. It's not been public, and in fact, you realize that this has come as a sudden thing for everybody.
It does look like
Absolutely,
sudden.
yes. But that's because we have been working very quietly in the background, and once it was clear to us the negotiations were going nowhere, we very quickly, it was a very easy decision to take. We basically just went straight. We filed the necessary papers against them. Basically, you serve them. You serve them at their embassy. We did that, and we are in arbitration.
Now, what happened to the 2010 petition that
there's no. That's the
the
point that I'm
UN
making.
for?
Cote d'Ivoire
So
never went.
they never went anywhere.
No. That's something. I mean, I think maybe it's something that the Joint Research Department might want to look at again.
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Let me hit the telephone lines and speak to Kojo Poko, who is an energy expert. He's joining us now. Good evening, sir.
Hi. Good evening. How are you doing?
I'm very fine, thank you. Now, in the past week, we've had negotiations to shore up Ghana's the confidence in Ghana's economy for it, and this just comes in. You don't think this is bad news at this time?
Oh, no, it's not. When you're trying to protect your sovereignty vis-a-vis what assets you think you have in your territory, I don't think it's bad news. You wouldn't want people to think that they could encroach on your territory and lay claim to things that is rightfully yours. Like I said earlier on your platform, the areas which is being contested, it's not sudden that Ghana started doing work there. There's been oil companies been doing work in those waters for so many years. Ghana Petroleum did some work in that area. There's been other exploration done by the GMPC in the past in those areas. And I'm sure the Ivorian Navy or the Ivorian Authority would have seen that Ghana has actively been doing work in those areas in terms of exploration. They never said anything. It's only when there's been recent discoveries in those areas that they want to lay claim to the area. So us protecting what is ours is only going to show that Ghana is not a pushover.
So, I mean, Ghana not being a pushover, what exactly is at stake? I mean, if, for example, we go through with this arbitration case at the UN and we don't have a strong case, and let's say, for example, we're not successful, what will be at stake?
What will be at stake will be the wells that has been drilled very close to where the demarcation will be. Now, really, it's a bit technical when it comes to oil wells and structures. Now, these structures sit beneath the water. Now, what you are really going to do is draw a demarcation to say that, okay, this part of the water is Ivorian territory and this part of the water is Ghana territory. Now, depending on where the oil rig or the drilling rig sits, if, let's say, in your scenario, Ghana is not successful and our rigs are in the water that will become Ivorian territory, then we would have to move those rigs out of those waters. But I really don't think it's going to come to that. I think the authorities...
It means there's a lot at stake.
No, there's a lot at stake. I mean, it's oil wells. And I'm sure the Ivorians, if it wasn't oil wells, they wouldn't have claimed, when the waters has been there for 50 to odd years, they've never claimed to those waters. If it's for fishing, I don't think the fishing boundaries are there. Everybody fish where they want to fish. They've never said that Ghana fishermen are in their waters. It's only when it came to oil that they want to lay claim to the oil. So, yes, there's a lot at stake.
Right. Mr. Fojo, we are hearing this and trying to quantify what exactly is at stake here. When I ask the question, why now, and trying to pinpoint it in a situation where we have been going to the IMF to try and show confidence in our economy, and then this comes, you don't think that is going to, rather than creating increasing confidence in our economy, rather going to make investors a bit shaky?
Not at all. Not at all. You see, basically, everybody who follows the situation closely knows that what the Ivorians are doing is nothing more than an ambit claim. An ambit claim is where you reach out for a lot and you expect at the end you'll get something, not the massive thing that you reached out for. Do you see? So it's an ambit claim, and everybody who has studied the situation closely is of the view that Ghana has a 100% solid and sound case. But we are good neighbors.
Right.
So we basically decided to go through a process of talking, and then we decided that we're going to basically do the backup work so that if and when we decide that we're going to go, we'll be in a position to go boom, which is exactly what we've done, which is why everybody is so surprised.
Considering the insecurity in the region, really, Ivory Coast has recovered from a very bad situation in their country, election disputes and all of that, and they are neighbors. The big times that some of their citizens have come over into our country for protection. Don't you see this possibly escalating into a full-scale war?
Not at all, because you see, again, It is not a hostile. It is not a hostile act. The United
But if
Nations,
it was not hostile, you would have continued with the negotiation processes that
but the negotiation,
10 meetings.
No. The negotiating process was not giving us a result. What we've now asked Ivory Coast to join us in doing is to go to arbitration. So 5 people who are independent and expert in this area will do for us what we were not able to do in face-to-face negotiations. You understand me? So it is not as if, you know, basically we are having...
But what stalls the face-to-face
negotiations? Simply because...
Why is it that you were unable to do certain things by physically meeting and discussing?
It didn't stall in the sense... It didn't stall in the sense that there was basically something really sharply dividing us beyond the fact that they want a bisector line which cuts into our territory. We want our equidistance line to stay where it is, which is where it has always been.
For 50 years,
precisely.
Right. Let's get onto the other line. Ben Boakye, who is a programs director at ASAP, African Center for Energy Policy, is joining us now. Good evening, sir.
Yeah,
does this come to you as a surprise?
No, not actually, because we have been following this for a while now, and everybody who is close to some of these decisions would know that even while these 2 countries were in a room negotiating, in the background they were preparing for something like this. In the oil industry, nobody gives anything to chance. And even if Ivory Coast has a 5% or 2% chance of winning, they might still want to test it. So it's not surprising. It was to be expected. So we are here, we have it, and we should go the long haul for it.
And how far can we go with it, really?
I think once it hasn't been established, you know, internationally that this is where our boundary ends. It has been an agreement that long existed between Cote d'Ivoire and Ghana, and we both respected that.
Okay.
But it has come to a point where resources are likely to be on the borders, and we need to clearly define where our boundary ends and where that of Cote d'Ivoire begins. And I think they will want to establish that. So that is why they are testing it, and it is the right way to go. Ghana wants to go into an arbitration to give an independent opinion a chance to see where we reach.
You seem to be trivializing it. I mean, they want to go to an arbitration and give independent view a chance. I mean, what's the viewpoint of your civil society group? Are you in support of this? Do you think this is the right thing to do, especially at this time?
I think I did that. I said that is the right thing to do. I mean, Cote d'Ivoire always respected our boundary until we had oil. And I made mention that once it's oil, even if they have 1% chance, they will still want to try to see what comes out of it. And we cannot continue to play the ostrich to think that nothing is going to miss. We need to establish that boundary so that going forward, everybody is clear that that section belongs to Ghana or not. And I think that is what government has done, and we are all for it.
So would you also support the fact that as this process go on, the negotiation processes that was started some time back continue?
I think that if we can, through arbitration, establish the true boundary, that works fine, so that in future we don't come back, you know, to visit it, you know. Because if you go and agree, and another regime in Ivory Coast come and say, we don't agree to that of the past regime, then we are back to square one. So I think the arbitration would better establish the boundary, so that not just for oil, even when tomorrow there's another resource, say fishing or any other activity, we clearly know where Ghana's boundary ends and where Ivory Coast's boundary begins. And I think that is fair, you know, for us to do at this point.
Okay, thank you very much, Ben Boakye. Ben Boakye is Program Director, ASAP. Kojo Poku, if you're still there, I need to just ask you, I mean, this comes at a time where there is a particular government in place. I mean, the government under the John Mahama administration could start this process. There is the possibility this won't finish and they might be out of office or might not be, and then there will be another government. Do you foresee that subsequent government will find it okay or perhaps comfortable to continue this arbitration process?
Yeah, why not? It's, when it comes to sovereignty, every leader or minister who has sworn in is sworn in to protect the sovereignty of the country, which is Ghana. The sovereignty of Ghana does not wear party colors. So be it PNC, MPP, or NDC, I think the Attorney General at the time would continue the process. Was something that one of the gentlemen who just spoke said, which to me makes a lot of sense also, is that sometimes you would think that the President Mahama will talk to his colleague on the other side and they could come to an agreement. But like he alluded to, if you do that and then let's say President Mahama is not around or the president of Ivory Coast is not around, then somebody might say that, look, let's take it up again. Right. So that's when the cordial negotiation could not resolve it. By all means, let the legal course be taken so that it will be settled for once and for all, so that we can also have the luxury of doing further explorations in those areas. Because what you should remember is that now it makes it difficult for any company to invest more money in the area, not knowing whether you're going to go under Ivory Coast or Ghana in the future.
Right. Kojopoku, we're grateful. That's all time will allow us. We're grateful for your time. Kojopoku is an energy expert.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Kojo, let me wrap up with you. I know you have quite a busy schedule right now. What should Ghanaians expect from this? How soon should this be terminating? So we all, like Kojopoku said, get the confidence for further exploration.
Well, in something like 3 to 3.5 years' time, we'll have a single maritime boundary line, which will be an equidistance line, and it will go out to our 200 nautical mile limit for our exclusive economic zone, and it will go out to our extended continental shelf. So that is what Ghanaians should expect.
What does this mean in simple layman's terms?
Well,
I mean, should we expect that Ghana should now say that this is our boundary?
Yes, that's end of story. But let me also just say let me also just point out something. You see, when you start these processes, there's a lot of fuss and a lot of running around and a lot of anxiety, perhaps. But then,
which could have been avoided?
No. That's not the point. That's you were asking about currency base and all that. But once people actually start settling down and talking over the 3-year period, you actually end up becoming united and friendly because somebody else is doing for you that which you were not able to do for yourself. And in all the recent maritime, I'll give you a particular example, Guyana and Suriname, they had something which had gone on for 70 years.
Right.
Now, after they settled their issue through arbitration, they made a joint submission to jointly extend their continental shelf together. Remember how this thing started? Ivory Coast started saying, oh, in the context of the extended continental shelf, let's look at how we divide things up. Once Guyana and Suriname sorted their issue out, they then jointly made a submission.
Because then there will be legal parameters.
Because the teams had actually built a unity, right? But that unity was mediated by the third party settlement. They could be friends because there was...
I'll have you pause. I have former Attorney General Ikotu joining us on the telephone before we lose him. Good evening, sir.
Hello, good evening.
The legal processes that have begun, as a lawyer, former Attorney General, you think is in the right direction?
I think so. The Constitution, Article 73, enjoins the government of Ghana to conduct its international affairs in consonance with the accepted principles of public international law and diplomacy in a manner consistent with the national interest of Ghana. So if we have found oil and, it is black gold, and for any reason we have some difficulties with our neighbors, then we need to look at the international exclusive zone, the economic zone as it were, and to set whatever boundaries there are to be set in a very peaceful manner. One of the very peaceful ways of doing things are arbitration, reconciliation, and mediation.
But our understanding is also that you started a similar process. What happened to that one?
Well, I can't recollect, but that whatever it is, for now, we have gold, black gold, which is oil. And the agency is more, critical. That might have been at the time when maybe we were not even producing oil in these quantities as we do now.
So, I mean, what you're saying, in effect, is that whether you started anything or didn't start anything, the most important thing is the government is starting it and you're encouraging it. So what happens when this government leaves office? What will be your advice or recommendation to the new Attorney General, if there is any, what they should do from there on?
That is of the state policy makes it clear that the incoming government should continue projects started by the former government.
Well, but it's not always the case. I mean, in our country, a lot doesn't happen that way.
No, but this is in the national interest of Ghana, and I do not think that any government would, if you like, use the word, joke with it. I don't think so. Right. We need to establish our exclusive economic zone to ensure that these are the limits where we can, drill oil and all that. So if we are having difficulty with a sister country, why don't we resolve that issue? You think a government will come and say it's not interested in that one? Why? We want to go to war or something? I don't think so.
Right. Are you able to? We're very grateful for your time on today's Big Story. Let me wrap up with you properly, Mr. Fojo. You heard Ayiko, so obviously everybody supports this stance that as a former Attorney General, his legal position is the same as it is, that we need to go and secure a judgment or a verdict, a favorable one for us. But I am worried about what others who, like normal citizens who may have little understanding of this, might think that this will escalate into full-blown war. I've said this twice. How cautious are we in handling this to be certain that it won't escalate beyond what we can cope as a nation?
I think there's a real point out which was given by one of the speakers, which is that the way that you do this stuff is you negotiate. And then in the background, you start doing the work for a possible next stage, which is a peaceful method of dispute settlement called arbitration. So they're ready for us also on this. They are doing their work, and we've also done our work. There's not going to be any war, there's not going to be any issues, because we're talking about peaceful settlement of disputes. And for me anyway, so you think that at a time when the entire West African region is seriously worried about Ebola, somebody is going to add war onto that as well? The ordinary people are not going to support it. But you never know. The ordinary people are not going to support it. It is that simple. We, the people, are not going to support it. It is that simple.
So this is a yes for us.
Yes.
All good for Ghana.
Absolutely.
Okay. Mr. Fojo, we're grateful for your time. My name is Stephen Antia. That's where we wrap today's Big Story. We'll be right back with an interactive segment. Stay with us.